Hi there. My name is Peter Bernstein. I am the principal of PS English, and we've been teaching English to Japanese people in London and online since 2001.
Hi, I'm Pernilla Rudlin, Managing Director of Rudlin Consulting, European, Middle East and Africa representative of Japan Intercultural Consulting, providing consulting, research and training to Japanese companies and their partners all around the world. So, this is the second in our series of what Japanese people find challenging about speaking in English. This time, we thought we'd look at participating in group conversations. So, Peter, why do you think Japanese people find it hard to participate in group conversations, say in a meeting or a social occasion with our native English speakers?
I'd say the number one issue is listening and understanding what the native speakers are saying. And there are many, many reasons why Japanese people do find that difficult. But of course, if you can't understand what the native speakers are saying in the first place, then it's very difficult to contribute to the conversation.
What can you say other than just sort of nod and laugh nervously?
Absolutely. And I think the key problem is not really sometimes from the perspective of the Japanese person. The key problem often is that the native speakers, the British speakers, speak too quickly. And there seems to be a lack of awareness sometimes that the Japanese speaker doesn't understand what's going on. There's also a huge variety of accents. As a school, we can't teach hundreds of different varieties of accents. So that's another issue which makes it pretty difficult, particularly in group conversations.
Yeah, there's actually been quite a lot of research done about the difference in eye contact levels and interrupting and overlapping, and also pauses from country to country, culture to culture. And Japan, you won't be at all surprised to know, even when it's Japanese to Japanese, there's quite a low level of overlap in conversation. There's a lot more 5-10 second pauses between one person saying something and then another person saying something. Yeah, the eye contact level is quite low, so I think also that it might be difficult to catch people's eyes and say, I want to say something now.
Absolutely, and there's not that gap sometimes to clarify or check what the native speaker is actually saying.
Yeah, so what do you normally say to them when they say, I don't understand what's going on? What kind of hints or tips do you have?
Some of it's common sense, some of it's very, very obvious. Can you possibly repeat what you just said? Sometimes trying to paraphrase what the native speaker has just said. I think sometimes it's also very important to work on understanding and having a better background in the context and in the content. If, for example, you're going to an after-work conversation and they're going to be talking about a certain subject, then sometimes a little bit of preparation is worthwhile. So you're a bit more familiar with the content of the conversation. Of course, that's not always possible.
Was that go back to our previous episode about small talk when we talked about knowing a bit about sports or a TV program?
Absolutely. And just exposure in your everyday life to English. A Japanese business person in London may spend 12 hours a day working with Japanese colleagues in their company. And again, this is obvious, this is common sense solution, but exposing yourself to TV, to radio, to podcasts, to British speakers, try to have some kind of social communication outside working hours with native speakers. That is sometimes very difficult to organise, but it's crucial to increasing your understanding in a group situation.
A Japanese friend of mine, the way she keeps her English going is, even though she's living in Japan, is to listen to TED Talks on YouTube. She says it's just the right sort of short length. And you expose yourself to many different people's accents as well, I guess.
Absolutely, they can be fantastic. Sometimes it's useful to improve your listening to use materials where there's a text and where you can follow the text while you're listening to the material. Yeah. I can recommend to students BBC 6-Minute English, which is very small excerpts of conversations about a variety of topics. Yeah. You can print out the text of the conversation and work alongside it. So that's something that's useful to do alongside general listening to podcasts, YouTube and radio, and TED Talks, which, as you say, are really great.
Although, of course, they don't replicate. I think what's most difficult is the background noise. It is really difficult if you're not a native speaker of that language to filter out other stuff going on. And I didn't realise this, but apparently it is quite common for bilingual kids, is that they actually spend a lot of time staring at people's lips when they're talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a lip reader, but I think it just, any extra context that you can get to what someone is saying, whether it's eyes, lips, or just not being distracted by other noise. So I often say to Jessie, try not to always go to pubs with the British, because
It's quite difficult to avoid going to pubs with
it's
the
very
British
difficult to avoid. Try and find a really unpopular pub
or a quiet cafe.
until you get used to it, and then you can shout with everybody else. Well, it's Friday here too, so as the Japanese say, it's Hana no Kinyobi, which means Flower Friday. So thanks very much, Peter, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Have a lovely weekend.